How are you? We are here, like I said, at 1:30. We were waiting for this moment to be together with my friend and colleague Daniel TRENNER, because we have so much we want to share at this Open Roll Tango Festival that is happened in Boston during the weekend of the 20 to 22nd. 3 days, very special for us because this is an idea we started back 5 years ago and was not very clear like it is today. We both knew we want to say something about this, and
we were interrupted by the pandemic.
Yes, it's true. We were having I was starting a new chapter in my life, and then I met Daniel, and we realized that we had so many things that we understood that we want to share it from different perspectives, but they were the same ideas. And then the pandemic came, so this was in a standby, and then I continued searching for this as I was going into my own life experience. Daniel was already into this idea of exchange roles for many years. And when I decided I want to move on into a festival, or I will say more like a convention, when we can, with different group of people, we can kind of share this idea that is not new, that is not a trend, is something that I noticed was necessary to start talking about it, to bring that up. So I called Daniel because he was one of the first ones that understood the importance and of this idea of interaction between one role and the other. And me being traditional in the traditional tango world, Argentinian female, was almost like how dare this America, this gringo, come to Argentina, and he talked about exchanging roles. For us was a very strange concept, even though it was happening already. But I always was fascinated about how clear he saw it from outside, and how important is that he brought that to the United States. So I always want to support that, but I never have the clarity and the power in me to be able to talk about it that like I have today. And so when I was coming out with the idea of the festival, the very first person that I thought I need to do that, and I need to share that, and I need to keep learning, was Daniel. So here we are. This is the second one we do it. Last year we did it in Oklahoma, and was a great experience. Personally, I learned so much, and I think people who were in the festival, they also give us a feedback that we were very much trying to get, and we get it. So now we are in Boston again next March 20 to 22nd. So first of all, very short, I want to Daniel, how did you arrive on the Aries? How did you arrive to Argentina? Can you just maybe resume for the new people who they don't know you, because you can isolate in this part of the world, but you've been around almost 40 years.
Well, I started my professional dance career in the late 1970s, and I had been touring in Europe as a teacher of contact improvisation, jazz dancing, tap dancing, and alternative body work, experiential anatomy. And I was invited to Argentina in 1987 by Anna Ittelman, who was the director of the School of Contemporary Dance at the San Martin. And I had experience. I was an improvisation specialist from the United States with experience in a postmodern dance form that is very gender-free. The bodies in this dance form just move around together, and men dance with men, women dance with women, people dance in groups. And this is what I was teaching in the modern dance world in Buenos Aires. And I asked, well, what do Argentines dance? And I was brought to see the tango first in the tourist shows in San Telmo, and then out to the milongas. And one of the stories that they always told me was that in the golden years of tango, the men would practice together. And every teacher, all of the male teachers that I spoke to, all of them told me stories about learning how to dance with other men, changing roles. And what I noticed, and what I understand better now, is that Argentina suffered a terrible crisis that lasted for almost 3 decades, where military rule and with social life cut down, shut down throughout the city. That when tango came back after the democracy in the 1980s, that the men who were now older decided that they would create practices and milongas. And when they created practices in the 1980s, all of the women who were dancing with these men, including the younger generation, they all said, well, we're coming to the practice, which was a very feminist thing to do. And I come from the North, where it made perfect sense to me. But what I realize now, looking back, is that when women came to the practices in the 1980s, the men stopped dancing with each other because women were there. So that insecurity on the part of the men presented itself, and it changed the whole nature of how the dance was being learned in Argentina. So we were at these practices, and the men would always lead at the practice and the women would always follow, and then it would be the same at the milonga. And I kept asking the question, why is that? Why don't the men dance with each other? Why don't the women dance with each other? And then well, I was with my partner at the time, Zoraida, and Pupi Costello. We were at Canning, and Pupi Costello was watching us, and he already was well into his 4th or 5th whiskey that night, and he did something that I'd become familiar with, which was that he said no, and then we were practicing on the dance floor at Canning because at 11 o'clock the class was over, and they
practice.
all went out to dinner. They all went out to dinner. It was just us practicing on the dance floor with the bartender was playing music. And Pupi happened to be there because he was drinking. He wasn't going out to eat. And normally when they said no, they would take my girl from me and they would show me how to do it with the girl. Well, that night Pupi said no. And he pushed my girl away, and he took me and made me into the girl, and he danced not 1, not 2, not 3, but a whole tanda of like 4 or 5 songs with me.
To try to explain you something.
He was so frustrated with not being able to explain that he just danced me. And I tell you, the clouds parted and the sun came shining down and hit me on the head. And for the first time, I started to understand a little bit of what the follower feels like. And that was what I'd been asking for. And
for that personal experience. And it's funny because the only way I saw male dancing together is like you were saying earlier today, is when they were just laughing or making fun. They would never do it as seriously. It's
they
like
would never take it seriously.
No, they were just like...
that was because women were present.
Yes.
And none of us really understood that. Because it's part of the culture. Absolutely. And this then plays into the other part of the conversation that we would like to talk about, which is that if you have a culture of men and women living in I would say that the Catholic religion is part of it. You know, Argentina was, during the years that once I arrived in Argentina, most people don't go to church anymore.
Yeah.
But still, the culture comes out of the Catholic culture.
Yes.
And so Argentines see the relationship between the men and the women in the tango as a function of the relationship of men and women in the culture. Me coming from the outside, being a contact dancer, understanding dance and movement from a modern, liberal, progressive perspective in the United States, I coined the term leader and follower. I'm really the first person that started to, I was more comfortable talking about leader and follower than I was talking about man and woman in these parts. So then, of course, in the 90s, I brought 1,500 people to Buenos Aires and sent them back to North America, and we taught everyone about leaders and followers, and we translated in the classes when the men who were speaking or the women who were speaking would talk about the man's part or the woman's part, I would translate that as leader and follower.
Because
because that's how it made sense to me, and that's how it made sense in my culture.
Yes, but in that translation, we lost a lot of information.
Can you say a little bit about why Argentines are uncomfortable with leader-follower and more happy with man-woman? Even if you're leading me, you're the man and I'm
Yes, and it was something that for me for a long time was like when I remember the first time I was asked to please don't refer to men and women was in north of Europe and around Denmark, that part. I was guy in a workshop and I was said, okay, women's and men, and then were women's who were doing the role of the male and male, and then the organizer called me and said, no, you cannot do that. You need to refer as a leader and followers because here genders are, and I was like, I'm not talking about gender. I'm talking about a role who born in a particular culture aspect represented by a woman. And in that representation are many components that we didn't have to learn it literally or somebody has to explain it. We were just by being in that role. I'm coming from a culture that my age was told that we need to make sure our male feels empowered. Doesn't mean that I will feel less than them. I never feel less. But it's important that my male feel with that authority and that control. And this is translated at my grandfather, and my father. It's very patriarchal in a way. Tango have that. But not necessarily we have to fight with each other or thinking the one is more than the other. Like I always said, and this is why I want to share this festival, because I believe it is a big hole between the role of one and the other and what that role means, culturally speaking, and today's in the dance world.
Right, and I think it's important to notice, especially those of you that are considering coming to do this with us, that we are not asking women to appear as men in the Milonga. We are not asking men to appear as women. We're not asking you to show up at a social dance, a Milonga, social event, and be anything but yourself. What we are saying is that, and there's proof of this, evidence of this in the history of tango, what we are saying is that we want you to be better dancers. And we want you to be better dancers because we want you to experience embodiment of both roles in this dance. Even if you're a person who doesn't conform to gender roles in our modern society, at least here in the North, many people are gender curious. And I would still say to someone who doesn't identify as either a male or a female, that if you want to learn to dance the tango, in the learning process, you have to embody the male part and the female part, the leader part and the follower part. And you need to look at the dance from both of those parts, interchanging your perspective as you learn. And that what we're trying to say is that pedagogically, as a learning process, that is efficient.
And
it's the fastest way to learn.
Something that I want to add specific to that is that it's been now about, like I said, five years that I'm having my eyes putting into communities, into milongas, into festivals. I put myself in the place that, okay, lead me, woman. Okay, lead me, man. Okay, follow me, woman. Follow. Like, just so I have clarity of this thing that this sensation that I think is missing. And doesn't mean that you are a woman and you learn how to lead, or you are a male and you learn how to follow. Doesn't necessarily mean that you understand what it means to dance together. And what I'm saying that with such a confidence is because I've been led by females even more empowered than when I've been led by male. And I led males completely like no voice. Like I led sometimes. So
what
learning the other role is not repeating what there is. And that's the thing, it's hard to explain it because it's hard to say to someone, I said, but I've been leading.
Let me take a go at it, which is that when we exchange in the learning process and we learn both roles at the same time, simultaneously, then we are not going to end up repeating the experience of people who only learned to lead and who only learned to follow. And that change in experience, which I would call embodiment, that change in experience where we are ongoing at the same time experiencing both of these parts, that changes how we experience each of the parts.
Exactly. And that's what I said. I've been working with individual and private lesson, or like a small workshops, or I'm trying to do like a more intensive seminary, like immersion into tango, which has been very difficult to get people these days. People are not gathering together to learn. You can see it socially. We had these big events when people dance. I'm going to that event sometime just for curiosity to see, okay, what is that these people are looking for? And I see these females who, some of them happen that I dance with them, they're great dancer, been pushing around. And then they decided they're going to be the one who push the other. And sometimes, like we have it today, this practica, and we had this is like why do you decide to lead? Because I want to be empowered. And it's like, no, that's wrong. No one has to be empowered over the other, because we are repeating the same thing. The idea is, I want to learn when to give up that power and when to receive the power back to me. And that's when the exchange of the role happening.
And I would like to add to that as a compliment that I feel that culturally, the weakest part of our society is male energy, which is out of balance. And as a man growing up in North America and dancing with other men who've grown up in America, I think that the hardest transition in this learning process is us as men learning how to learn with each other. Because men have been brought up in this culture to either be alone and not share their feelings and not share their experiences with each other, or to be part of a competitive sports team where we work as a team to dominate another team, but that then creates a competitive aspect between ourselves. Either way, we're not really encouraged to have a community in the same way that women more naturally are encouraged to do that.
Listen.
So I think that it's easier for women to take the step to at least try to do both roles.
But listen, now I see it, especially in this society, but I see it in Argentina as well, that women understand in order for them to have a voice, they need to control. So they understand that by being the leader, they had more voice and they had more control. What is completely wrong. You don't need to, it's not anyone control anyone. So when they go into tango, they feel frustrated because they don't have a voice. But I'm being leading women and I give the power, and it's true, they don't have nothing to say, and I want them. I want both to be very expressive. I want both to understand, yes, I'm not better or I'm not over you. I have my role. And this festival is created with that in mind. Obviously, I have my students who are more experienced students, and they said, but I feel good the way I am. And I dance with them, and I said, you don't know how much you're missing. But of course, you don't know what you don't know.
Well, and I want to say, after 50 years in this business, that generally speaking, in these dance classes and in these festivals, there are more women than there are men. And I'm speaking directly to you men who are out there and considering coming and joining us, that we need to balance out the energy in this dance society by participating more. And that means that we need to open ourselves up to the experience of what it's like to do the woman's part. I was going to say to follow, but we have this dialogue here where it's like, follow is not really the word that they would have.
To respond. I like the word to respond.
We talked about how
we were looking on the dictionary and what mean in Spanish, that maybe is different in English, but this idea of proponer is someone who are not dictated what we're going to do. It's a propose, it's an invitation, and then to someone who is going to take that absorb it, I mean like receive it, right? And then respond it in the context of that invitation.
And then they're going to resolve it together.
Yes, and we find that word that was very nice. There
desmontar.
Was desmontar. It's like, so we have it
which
here.
In English is a dismount, which is kind of the conclusion of whatever it is that you're doing. And
that's what the dance happened. For me, that's when you're tangoing,
but here's the
is
thing.
At that point.
Instead of it being lead and follow, it's proposal, response, and resolution, collaboration. Proposal, response, and resolution. That's an interesting way of looking at how the roles in the dance interact with each other. And what we're saying is that you can still go out to the milonga at night and dress as a man and be a leader. You can still go out to the milonga at night and dress as a woman and be a follower. We are not trying to change your choice of how you want to appear in a social environment. But what we're saying is that we want to see the level of dancing get much higher. Tango lost a couple of generations of its evolution to a very harsh situation politically in the country of Argentina, and people didn't dance. We don't have a natural group of grandparents and great-grandparents to have learned from. So,
and by the way, that's new generation that I've been part of that. We receive information verbally that were not necessary, because the people who communicated, they were just tango dancers. They were not specific based in pedagogy or training in other dance, understanding the body like a dance.
And their language very much couched in the cultural relationship between men and women. Mm-hmm. And women
the culture,
did not have the public voice.
I remember, you remember Celia Blanco.
Mm-hmm.
So she was one of the teachers from our generation. She was the one on the 90s. She brought so many young people into tango, and she was leading. But she never told to any of us to learn how to lead. She was the teacher who she needs to learn because she didn't have a partner. So she was assistant Eduardo Arquimbao in her classes. But she was the leader one. And she led me many times, but as a teacher, right? But socially speaking, she will never say, Fernanda, try how to lead me so you understand. With such a culture awareness of what the role of the woman should do as a woman in the society into the tango. But me as a dancer, it's more about how I feel in my body. So dancers don't go much about the society. I understand tango is a social dance and reflect what the society is saying or have to say. Today, the new generation of dancers in Argentina are beautiful females who have training mostly in other dance, so they have so much body information who can bring into tango so much. So especially my goal is to have these women not submiss, but don't compete. Be in the role that you are the one who complete that movement to be within the couple. And I want these young generations, the beautiful dancers. Unfortunately, they don't come in from the dance world like a lot of the females does, right?
Now you're talking about the male dancers?
The male dancers, yes. I want them to understand that today they are not losing power by giving the power. They gain a couple. So I wanna make sure that young generation understand that.
Well, and I'm following up by just saying to all of you dancers out there, it may seem when we're sitting here talking to you, so it's an intellectual exercise, and it may seem like we're talking about extremely simple things, but there's no replacement for getting the experience in your body. So what we are suggesting is that in the experience of learning how to do something like the tango, a partner experience that was created between men and women in cultures that were a little bit more patriarchal than the one that we live in now, that giving yourself the chance to experience the nuance of these tiny, almost imperceptible ways.
Yes, imagine that we cannot go,
Danny,
to each one of the milonga when I experience that, to say to people, no, oh no, you're missing this. You know, like, so the best way I want is to invite, give us a chance to tell you that you're missing that. Even if you think you don't. I'm just not saying because I know everything or he knows everything. I've been dancing with a lot of people these days to really prove that this sensation that I have few times is not just few times. And I'm discovering there is something repetitive that is missing, even with people that think they're very generous in the dance, they think they're very participative, and I know the intention is there, but the mechanics and the actions are no.
And I've been doing this. This has been my search for a 40-year tango career. And every time that we have an opportunity to work together and to rehearse together and to figure out how we want to teach this together, I realize that I'm learning new things. That in fact what Fernanda is talking about, this quote unquote missing piece of the puzzle, is something that it appears and disappears in the course of dancing. We have moments, epiphanous moments of pleasure when something happens between you and a partner and you have those memorable experiences dancing. And what we're trying to get at in this particular exercise is to make more accessible those moments, to find the way to not just happen upon them, but to see whether or not we can incorporate in our practice of learning a way of encouraging ourselves to have more of that.
Yes, and also it's like if me as a professional dancer, now it's been like 30 years that I'm in the dance world, like either performing or teaching, I have to say I've been aware of this no more than 10 years ago. And I thought that I was communicating that in a way that was implicit in the technique, on the elements, the technical aspects, or the mechanics, you know, like and I realized that it's not. So if I am, who is a professional dancer, who all I do all my life is dancing, right?
Well, let me just say,
I step back.
When Fernanda was in that previous life of hers, she was amazing. And really, an amazing performance dancer. And the work that you did with your partner and the television stuff and the stage dancing, fabulous. And I don't hear her necessarily putting down the knowledge or the accumulation of knowledge of tango that happened through that experience. But much like for myself, the longer you dance, the more that you realize that there is underneath the superficial part of dancing.
You take it for granted. You don't talk about it, right? Because are in your body, how you move. And I've been listening to leaders who said, "Oh my God, you." It's so easy to dance with you. And I said, why is it easy to dance with me and not to everybody else? Why? What is it that I'm doing different? Or if I lead a woman recently, it's a new thing that I've been doing. Like I said, 10 years is nothing compared to 30 years. And the woman said, oh my God, feel so gentle, or feel like you give me time. And I was like, so it is something that in my searching, I'm not better than anybody else. It's that I'm aware. And my role as a teacher, I love this dance, and I love how that dance brings to my life, personally, to my relationship, to my life in general. And I said, I'm not saying something. We as a teacher are not communicating something that is so obvious. And it's been 3 generations already who are not talking about that. 3 generations is a lot. We're talking about 30 years.
Well, and also in the world of, we're professional dancers and we've been professional teachers for 40 years. Finding someone with whom you can have this conversation and we can share with a group of people as teachers without stepping on each other and without contradicting each other and without fighting with each other, but with a mutual desire to go deeper and to explore this lesser known, well, it isn't lesser known territory, it's lesser defined or lesser explained. It's like in the course of the development of tango teaching and tango pedagogy over these last 40 or 50 years of the revival, we're still not quite there yet. We haven't quite caught up to the deepest and more, the deepest roots of the dance. And the deep roots of the dance go back to a learning process that involved doing both roles all the time while they were learning. It just didn't happen with men and women in the same room together.
And let me reinforce again, not only doing the both role, is understanding, because I see professionals doing the other role, but doesn't mean they understand what is missing in each one of them.
Well, partly it's because, a lot of professional dancers, they learn enough. If they're men, they learn enough of the following to teach the follow, and if they're women, they learn enough of the leading to teach the lead. But we actually like dancing these other parts. We like dancing. And we're hoping to meet you. We're hoping that there's a group of people out there that are as curious as we are about how deep can we go when we share that experience.
Who are these people? Who are the people we want to invite? If you've been dancing and you've been feeling that something is missing, but even for a moment, I promise you that when you understand your role, it's never a bad dance, because you take the responsibility of your role and the other person the same way. So it's never, I have a bad dance. It doesn't exist that. I have a better dance, yes, but should always be a good dance because you put it out there. So I don't want to hear people complain anymore without doing nothing. See? So I'm taking this on my shoulders and I want to share with someone like is open to do it, right? Because I heard you. So now I need you to be part of that. Let me do my job. My motivation of doing this festival is not from nowhere. It's by listening what people are complaining about it. It's by knowing, I get pushing around. Okay, let's do something about it. Oh, women don't react the way. Okay, let's do something about it. Let's stop complaining. Let's take the responsibility or start making the change from you. And I'm talking specific to my community, my dear Boston community, that we have so many dancers down there that they think they're okay, but they still complain. I have so many leaders that I like to be embraced, and I would like them to embrace me and share that experience. So I really invite you guys to take the chance. And this is not going to be a workshop. You can stay with your partner if you want. You can stay on your role if you want. We give all this. We don't want to impose you something that you are not ready. But we want to invite you to step, because without you in the same room, we cannot start moving forward. Keep watching videos or going repetitive dancing, milongas or festival is not going to change anything. So,
well, we're a few weeks.
We're very good. We cannot have so many. So if you're thinking about it, step in, because unfortunately we have to limit. In order for us to be able to share with everyone, we can't have 100 people in the room. We need to limit the space so we can create it. But I would like the community of Boston specific, because it's in that community. You can go from different places. I welcome everyone from outside, but then you're going to be one sharing that. But if you have a community, we can change things in the community.
Oh, and we are 3 weeks out from doing this festival, and we hope that you'll join us.
So thank you, Danielle, and thank you for receiving me here in your house. Thank you. Can you turn around so they see you? This beautiful soul was. Hello.
That's good,
Yes, it's part of this community. Thank you for being here with us. Yes, I hope to see you. I will put the registration. You go to Open Roll Tango Festival and it's there, or you go to my website, fernandagi.dance, learning experience, Open Roll Tango Festival, March 20 to 22nd in Boston.